Intelligence experts note this overwhelming evidence of Muslim Brotherhood infiltration is possibly the greatest present-day threat to national security.
It says that the United States counterintelligence is completely broken. It says that there has been a very successful insurgency that has ideologically subverted political elites using tools that are taken right out of the Soviet handbook on such activities, political correctness being one of them. And probably one of the finer definitions of ideological subversion I ever heard is, ideological subversion is, if I can control your information inputs, I can control your decision-making process.
Boy, and I'm telling you, that's a preview of the best news program on television, bar none. For the record, tonight, 8:30 Eastern Time. For the record, only on The Blaze. We uncover the threat of the Muslim Brotherhood infiltration in our own government. And what was just said there is this parallels the Soviet infiltration in the 1940s. Diana West is the author of American Betrayal, The Secret Assault on Our Nation's Characters. Diana, you and I have talked about this before. This is so much parallel. Let's go through a couple of them. Let's go through the institutionalizing of the phrase religion of peace. Give me the parallel of that from the 1940s.
Yeah. It's a great one, Glenn. Right after 9/11, we get hit on 9/11, and President Bush tells us Islam is a religion of peace. And we spend the next 12 years now watching this be institutionalized, watching the public square only smile upon people who say things that support this completely illogical statement. Islam is not a religion of peace. We see jihad around the world that tells us that. What I found, and much to my surprise, I found that during World War II, just as today's federal government will whitewash jihad, whitewash Sharia, whitewash Islam, we had the federal government whitewashing communism, telling us that communism was compatible with democracy, that there was full religious freedom in the Soviet Union. President Roosevelt actually said that straight-faced to the nation in 1941. I mean, the parallels are striking. They're shocking. They tell us the government lies to us.
Okay, let's take the John Brennan trying to take everything out, calling anybody an anti-jihadist, anti-Muslim.
Yeah.
Give me the parallel in the 1940s.
Yeah. Well, we had that letter, right, to 2011 to John Brennan, then President Obama's counterterrorism advisor, telling him to strip out the anti-Islamic, the trainers who were teaching Islamic realism, jihad realism. In 1943, much to my surprise again, I find the Soviet ambassador comes to the State Department with a list of names, just as we saw in our own time, a list of names of perceived to be anti-communist officials at the State Department. He wanted them purged. They were purged. Plus, they also completely broke apart and destroyed or just riffled through the files that had been painstakingly assembled at the State Department after the revolution up to the war period by Soviet specialists, by men on those desks.
Okay, I know that in
same thing.
You know, we had, at the time, we had J. Edgar Hoover, who has been vilified in history, but that guy was a communist hunter. And he wouldn't give up. And he had assembled an awful lot of power in those days. And there were others like him that would ring the bell. And the American public were taught communism is bad. We were all over that. Our media, everything. Communists are bad. We're nowhere even near that. We have no one really on the inside. How do we survive this one with the Muslim Brotherhood inside our own government?
Well, it's a big question, right? I mean, you zeroed in on a very important difference between our time and our parents' and grandparents' time. Yes, you had an anti-communist at the top of the FBI. Today we have men at the top and women at the top of the FBI who know nothing about the threat, who do not understand what the Muslim Brotherhood is, what it stands for, what it's supposed to do. So I think, again, we have to look to our forebears' example. We had great investigators in the House and the Senate. We had Democrats, we had Republicans. We had Martin Dies of Texas, representative Democrat, who opened up the House Un-American Activities Committee in 1938, did fantastic work after the war. This would continue on. We had Senator Joseph McCarthy, the most vilified man in American history, another one of the great investigators. But there were others. There's Senator Pat McCarran, a Democrat, did fantastic work. We don't have anyone doing that today.
You know,
I mean, Darrell Issa, yeah.
I only have a minute here. I mean, I'm concerned because I don't want people to prove their citizenship. Prove to me that you're not. It can turn into the witch trials easily, and you don't want to go down that road. You know,
yeah.
How do you balance that?
Well, I think you have to recognize the witch trials for sure. Back in Salem, we're pursuing innocence. But what we know now after the fall of the Soviet Union is that we had hundreds of Americans acting as proxies for Stalin in our government.
Right.
After the war, after Roosevelt, we had investigators trying to get their arms around it. Right now, we have Michelle Bachmann, remember last summer, could not even raise her hand and say, do we have evidence of Muslim Brotherhood penetration of the policymaking train, or don't we? She was absolutely vilified, called a McCarthy, right?
Yep.
And it was over. And we have to get by that.
Diana, thank you very much. The name of the book is American Betrayal. And for anybody, this is what's happening now and the comparison. And anybody who in this audience who still thinks McCarthy was a bad guy, I might recommend you read another book called Blacklisted by History. It will change your mind. Thank you very much.